A season of vegetables from an American farm share runs about $600 in 2026, and it only feeds a household half the year. 1,200 years ago, a Benedictine monk grew a full 12 months of food from one small garden for the price of seed, with no chemicals at all. He called the garden the hortulus, Latin for the little garden. How a small garden fed a whole monastery with no chemicals and almost no water, and why a California lab broke records doing the same thing, is what follows. On a small island in a German lake in the 9th century, there was a monastery, and inside its walls a monk named Walafrid Strabo tended a garden with his own hands. He rose to become the abbot of that house, and somewhere in the work of those years he did something no one in Europe had done before. He wrote the whole garden down, 444 lines of Latin verse describing 24 plants and how each one was grown and used. It survives as the first gardening book in European history, and in those same years, in the same monastery, a second document was drawn, the most detailed blueprint of an ideal monastery that has come down to us. It laid the garden out as a precise grid of small raised beds, each bed given over to a single crop, the whole divided into a kitchen garden, a garden of medicinal herbs, and an orchard. Nothing about it was improvised. It was engineered. The principle underneath it had a name, ora et labora, work and prayer, held as a single discipline. So the beds were measured, fed, and rotated with the same care given to the hours of worship, and to let anything go to waste was counted a fault. It is easy to look at a medieval garden and see a quaint patch of subsistence. But these small plots outproduce the open fields around them several times over, not by luck, but by system. One reform order, the Cistercian monks, pushed the soil building further still, and their land grew richer the longer it was worked. Centuries later, a research center founded in California in 1972 would spend decades measuring exactly why. If you want to know which monastic systems the modern world is quietly rediscovering, consider subscribing. Every week, the series rebuilds one of them from the real record. Now, to what the soil was doing. That center is called Ecology Action, and its work, led by a man named John Jeavons, became known as the biointensive method. The measurements were startling. A small, intensively worked bed could produce several times the food of an ordinary plot while using 66 to 88% less water and 50 to 100% less fertilizer. And it built fresh topsoil up to 60 times faster than nature manages on its own. The hortulus was never a charming relic. It was a high-efficiency machine, and the numbers finally proved it. 3 mechanisms made it run, and the first one was invisible. The monks rotated beans, peas, and lentils through their beds. In the roots of those plants lived a soil bacterium that pulled nitrogen straight out of the air and fixed it into the ground. 100 to 300 kilograms in a single hectare in a single season, entirely free. When the plant died, the nitrogen stayed behind for whatever was planted next. The monks knew none of this. The bacterium responsible was not identified by science until 1889. They only knew that the bean bed left the soil richer than it found it. Science did not discover the practice. it discovered the reason. The second mechanism was the compost loop. Every kitchen scrap, every handful of animal bedding, straw, and hearth ash, every spent plant went back into the beds as dark, rich compost that held water like a sponge and released its food slowly, so the beds drank little and never wore out. The third was the bed itself. Built up off the ground and never once walked on, the soil stayed loose and full of air, so roots ran deep and plants could sit inches apart without starving one another, and the mounded earth warmed faster in spring, stretching the season by weeks at both ends. A plot smaller than a modern backyard could carry a household through all 12 months. On the ground, the work looked like this. The monks laid the beds out in a grid. Each one assigned a single crop. They raised the low sides by weaving willow and hazel branches into a kind of living basketry, then filled the frames with soil and compost. They never set foot inside a bed. Every task was done reaching in from the path. The sowing was staggered, so that one bed came ripe just as the last one was finishing, and the hortulus ran as a relay rather than a single harvest, its changeovers pinned to saints' days that doubled as planting dates. A full year of food came as much from keeping as from growing. Roots like turnips and parsnips were left in the cold ground or held in cool cellars. Cabbages were stored whole, and legumes were dried for the lean months. Growing, storing, and timing ran together as one system. The record is just as clear about what went wrong when the system was only half copied. 3 mistakes come up again and again. The first was compaction. Later gardeners who treated the beds as ground to stand on crushed the very air spaces that close planting depended on, and the yields fell away. The second was the dropped rotation. Imitators copied the tidy single crop beds from the old plans, but left out the rotation that walked the legumes through every bed in turn, so the soil that should have been refilled simply went hungry. The third was the broken loop. When kitchen and garden waste was burned or carted off instead of returned, the rich beds slid back into ordinary dirt within a few seasons, and one monastic choice, stranger than any of these, looks at first like a mistake of its own. The obvious way to get the most out of a small garden is to fill every inch of it with food. It is exactly what anyone laying out a survival garden does today, packing the ground with what will end up on the plate. The monks did the opposite, and they did it on purpose. They handed a large share of their best beds to crops they would barely eat. The legumes were there to feed the soil. The bulky leaf and stalk plants were grown mostly to be cut down and composted back into the ground. That apparently wasted space was the engine of the entire year-round harvest. When Jevons and his team rebuilt the arithmetic from scratch, with no medieval poem in front of them, they arrived at almost the same division, roughly 60% of the beds given to crops that feed the soil and the compost pile, and only about 30% to food. A method worked out in California with spreadsheets and scales landed on the very ratio a 9th century abbot had paced out by hand. The garden that produced the most food was the one that grew the least food per bed. And because so much organic matter went back into the earth, the soil held the rain, so the beds that looked wasted were quietly the watering system too. 2 pictures stand side by side then. On one, $600 handed over for half a year of vegetables trucked in from somewhere across the continent. On the other, a monk in a plain robe crouching beside a low bed walled with woven willow, a bed he had never paid a single coin to feed, lifting fresh food out of the ground in a month when the calendar insisted nothing should be growing at all. The cost was never really the point. The system was. A single bean plant, lifted from one of those beds, showed the whole thing in miniature. Its fine roots were dotted with pale little nodules, each one quietly pulling nitrogen out of the same air that everyone breathes, each one leaving the ground richer than it found it. The smallest and the freest machine in the whole garden. That is what the abbot was looking at when he reached for the word hortulus, the little garden, where the word little was never once a measure of what it could give. The next entry in this series leaves the Benedictine garden and crosses to the dry hills of western India, where the rain falls hard for 4 monsoon months, and then nothing falls for 8. Buddhist monks there pulled a full year of clean drinking water out of solid rock for nothing. A tank cut by hand into the cliff, a channel that caught the monsoon and steered it into the stone, a cover that held 8 months of standing water clear with no pump and no filter. How 4 poor men in robes drank through a dry season that should have emptied their well for $0 is a story coming next. Thank you for spending this time in the garden with me. Walk well this week, Monk Tenzin.